C'est tellement chic d'être un auteur. D'être connu pour ses œuvres, c'est être vraiment connu, vous n'êtes pas d'accord?
Votre livre, il est existentiellement possible que le monde tourne en mon absence, fait de tout Paris.
Je t'aime! Mon fils! Le photo! Le photo!
I started the stories about a couple of years ago, and I didn't know where they were going to lead, and it was very unlike me because usually I know exactly what I'm working on. I outline scripts very carefully, and these stories came from such scattershot ideas inside my mind that I didn't know where they were leading. I didn't know if they would ever be worth anything to anybody, but I just really wanted to write them. So at first I would email them out to a friend or two at a time, you know, one story to one friend, one story to another, very shyly. And then I took some to a stand-up comedy show, and I was so nervous that I had the paper in my pocket with another story, and I crumpled it beyond recognition by the time I got off stage. In my pocket, I've done stand-up a million times, but it was so much more personal to read these stories. And eventually I would perform the stories in front of about 100 people at a time at the UCB Theater in LA. So that was sort of my gradual way, you know, 10 people by 10 people, testing out if these stories were worth anything to anyone. And it was my way of sort of seeing if I was crazy, which I thought I might be. It sounded like a crazy thing to do. Say, oh, what are you doing after the office? Are you doing a movie? Are you writing a new TV show? To say, no, I'm writing a book, just odd little short stories. It sounds like you've lost your mind and no one's ever going to hear from you again. It sounds like, you know, a crazy old man in a cabin. And I wondered if I was a crazy old man in a cabin. And so now that the book is actually out and I can show it to people and people write to me about it and talk to me about it, it's incredible to realize that it was real, because I didn't know if it was for a long time. I was so used to this regimen where scripts had deadlines and had to be filmed and Steve Carell's waiting for the new pages, that I didn't know what it would be like to just sit in a house with no one expecting anything from me and write something. So I think scheduling those shows for me was a great bridge between being on The Office and writing on my own, because I knew, well, Friday night I have a show and there's going to be some people who came to the last show, so I can't do all the same stories.
Hey! Ok, c'est par jour, c'est rituel.
I loved it. I loved being on my own, but I think that was a reaction to working at Dunder Mifflin literally for 9 years and running everything by everybody. And while that was, I learned so much, I also kind of lost sight of where my voice ended and the show's voice began. I would have an idea, and Mindy would pitch in, and Greg Daniels would pitch in, and Paul Lieberstein would pitch in, and it would get better, but I wouldn't know what part of it was mine by the end. And I knew that the show was very much my style, but I didn't know exactly how and what I would be without Dwight, you know, or Jim and Pam. How would I write a romance that wasn't for these guys? How would I write something insane that didn't take place at a beet farm? I needed to kind of experiment, and I needed that alone time.